Welcome to the home team, the show where no matter who you root for, here you're a part of the home team. And today we are doing some broad, sweeping predictions for the 2025 NFL season. It is finally back. We are here, and prediction season is always sort of the most fun part about it. What we're going to go through today is who I think is going to essentially win these divisions, who I think is going to make and win the Super Bowl, and then maybe touch a bit on some potential awards, depending on how strongly we're feeling about that. So we'll jump in with the divisions right away. AFC East, we're gonna go from 4-1 here. 3 and 4, I view in a lot of ways the same. Where I got some big question marks about all of them, and they just feel like they're two teams that, especially as of last year, we're heading in the wrong direction. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but in fourth place, I'm going to take the Jets. I just don't see it from their offense. I think they could have a really strong rushing attack, and I think defensively they could be pretty good, but it feels like we see this all the time with teams. Stopgap quarterback, stopgap quarterback, stopgap quarterback. Justin Fields falls into that right now, and I don't see that working out in the way the Jets would probably like it to. And I think that they probably extend that streak of not being able to make the playoffs. Third place, I'm going with Miami. Simple reason, it's almost like a vibes thing. They just don't feel like they're heading in the right way. They don't feel like they are confident in what's going on there. And we've heard different things about culture and different things about discipline. And when those are the things that are coming out in the off season, when everyone's supposed to be optimistic and last year's behind us, we're on to the next, and there's so much reason to be excited, and it feels so negative that usually doesn't bode well. Second place, I'm going to go with the Patriots, which obviously means first place is the Bills. I'll talk about the Patriots a bit first. They feel like a team that is heading in the right direction. They made a coaching hire that everybody's very excited about with Mike Vrabel. Everybody seems to be really excited about Drake May, who showed a lot of really positive signs despite being in what is, to put kindly, a really bad situation last year. Um, yeah, it feels like they just have a culture and an identity, and they feel as though they're ascending while those other two are going down. And then the Bills. I think we would all be pretty shocked if the Bills don't win this division, right? Um, MVP. They're a team that they've won the division every year since Tom Brady left. Um, and while they might not be the most star-studded team in the whole league. This is a team that always just plays really well together. And until I see someone dethrone Josh Allen in the AFC East, I'm going to pick the Bills. AFC North. This and the NFC North are probably the two toughest divisions to predict in the entire league, and with good reason. In fourth place, this is a little bit easier. I'm going to put the Browns in fourth. I'm sorry, Cleveland fans. It just seems so disorganized. And I mean, good for you. You managed to keep Myles Garrett. Although I could make a pretty strong argument that trading him may have been the best thing for the Browns. They could have gotten a really great haul, and keeping him. I mean, it's great that you have him because he's hell on wheels for offensive lines and offensive coordinators. Like, he's the kind of guy that keeps you up at night. But the Browns are still so far away, and Joe Flacco's he's not the answer. So I'm going to go with the Browns in fourth. Third place, I'm going to put the Cincinnati Bengals in third place. And there was a strong debate between this and the team I ultimately put at number two. But what it comes down to is I don't think this team can play defense. And they might have the best offense in the whole division. They might have the best offense in the whole league. But if you're going to be a real contender and you're going to beat good teams, you have to be able to stop them. And I don't see that happening for Cincinnati. Number two, I'm going with Pittsburgh, which Baltimore, I have them first. So Pittsburgh, I'm going to have them in second place for a very simple reason. Huge boom or bust potential. I think if the year starts off like slowly for them and they lose a couple games, this thing could snowball and it could go bad real quick. They're also an older team. Obviously, they're relying on a lot of veterans. And if injuries were to strike, and you don't really want to talk about that in the offseason, but when you have an older team, it's more of a looming threat. Like it's not so abstract that some of these older guys could pick up a few injuries. Um, it has the potential to derail them. Now, if everything hits correctly, like somehow everything breaks right, Aaron Rodgers rediscovers himself and all that, then they have the potential to beat anybody in the league. But I need to see a couple of those things come together before I'm going to pick them over Baltimore, who I am very high on the Baltimore Ravens. I think roster wise, they are up there with any team in the entire league. And they just feel as though that of the four teams here, they're the most talented and the most stable. So I'm going with Baltimore to win the AFC North. AFC South, fourth place. I'm fourth place was tough. I'm gonna put Tennessee in fourth place because I'm very willing to admit that if Cam Ward hits, they could finish anywhere in this division. Probably not first, but anywhere from second to fourth. If Cam Ward is a great player, that can happen. But I don't. Once again, I don't think that's something that we get to just assume is going to happen. And if that's the case, then Tennessee still has holes all over that roster. They're just starting their rebuild. This is the kind of thing that probably takes 2-3 years realistically. Um, and it's tough to bounce them up above people until I see some of these elements coming together. Number three, Jacksonville. Jacksonville could easily be fourth, but I think they have enough defensive talent and an intriguing enough offensive core, and you give that to Liam Cohen, who did good things in Tampa Bay, and I think you at least have the potential for something good, and it's just a little bit more proven than what's going on in Tennessee right now. Indianapolis, put simply, they're just sort of by default better than the two teams below them, where they've got some talented players. I think offensively, in particular, they have a really talented core group of guys. Jonathan Taylor, obviously, Michael Pittman, A.D. Mitchell. They draft Tyler Warren. The offensive line is solid. Shane Steichen's a good offensive coach, but quarterback, man, I think Daniel Jones is he at least raises the floor. He probably brings the ceiling down a little bit, but if you can't hit the easy throws, if you can't do the things that are simply functional, then then there's really nothing that can be said in your defense. Like Anthony Richardson played himself out of that job, and Daniel Jones, I think, will at least provide stability. And stability in Indianapolis, I think, lands them probably somewhere around 500 and firmly in second place in the AFC South, which leaves Houston as number one. I think they're pretty clearly the number one team in both talent and culture and just overall trajectory and vision. Um, and almost all that has to do with the fact that they have CJ Stroud. D'Amico Ryans is a great defensive coach. Their defense in general is also awesome. And I think the Texans are as dangerous as anybody in terms of being an AFC threat. I think this is kind of the year where they can take that step. So as long as their offensive line doesn't completely let them down, I think the Texans are very dangerous. And I think they're pretty clearly the best in the AFC South. Now, the AFC West, very difficult as well. Um, I think the most interesting thing in this division is actually to go the other way. And for a very simple reason. I think that until we see somebody beat them, Kansas City just has to be essentially the presumptive winner of this. They've earned that at this point, and to be the man, you got to beat the man. And for all three of these teams, they are all making a valiant effort to build themselves up to do that. But I think that we have to talk about Kansas City just essentially sitting there until somebody knocks them off. Which, if we're being honest, this year more than previous years, it's more possible, but I need to see one of these teams really take it upon themselves to go out there and do it before I'm going to just predict it in the preseason. Uh, so from there on, I'm going to go to the team that I have in fourth place, which as of right now is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I think that a lot of things are going well for the Raiders. I think Pete Carroll coming in, really good. It's a good hire. Because at the very least, here's what you know you're getting. You're getting a coach who has won a Super Bowl, who helped turn around a franchise in Seattle that, listen, Seattle is not some like heritage franchise in the history of the league. Like they don't have like this illustrious past. Pete Carroll came in and brought about the most prosperous era in the history of the Seattle Seahawks. So you know that he's capable of building that kind of team. Obviously, they have Brock Bowers. They bring in Geno Smith, and they draft Ashton Genty. So offensively, they have a really strong core. Um, it's just a matter of if that's enough to overcome these teams that were just starting from a higher point. Defensively, it's still basically Max Crosby or bust, and I don't think that's a place you really want to be living when you have three other teams in the division that all play good defense. So I think the Raiders are heading in the right direction. I just think that three of these teams started their rebuilds around the same time, and two of them were just starting from a little higher up. In third place, I'm going with the Chargers for one very simple reason. Um, I don't believe the Chargers did enough this offseason in terms of providing firepower for Justin Herbert. They sort of just doubled down on what their identity was, where we're going to run the ball, we're going to play defense. It's like, okay, I get it. But the thing that killed you when the moment came was, hey, we're down. We need to be able to throw. They know that we need to be able to throw. And we don't have the guys out there. We don't have the horses to go and make this. And I really expected them to have changed that, but they didn't really. They bring back Keenan Allen, and as much as I love Keenan Allen, he's one of the best receivers of his generation. In the year 2025, that's probably not enough. Loud McConkey obviously could take a step forward, but I think you need three guys in terms of catching the ball to at least be, threatening. And it's Keenan Allen, it's Loud McConkey, and it's about it. I do like the Omarion Hampton pick for them. I think that he'll be really good for them. I'm just not exactly sure it was what they needed at the time. In second place, I'm going with the Broncos. This is a team that they also sort of doubled down on their identity, but it just felt like the changes they made were more substantial. Where year two of Bo Nix, you usually see a big leap between year one and year two. They bring in Evan Ingram on offense. They extend Cortland Sutton. They draft guys like R.J. Harvey. They also bring in J.K. Dobbins. So they bring in some new offensive weapons. Their offensive line's good. And then defensively, they were one of the best defenses in the entire league last year. And they bring in two former 49ers, which I will miss quite dearly, in Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. And those are the kind of guys that can make a big impact. So I believe Denver was aggressive in the right ways. And I think that that'll probably get them a second place finish in the AFC West. On to the NFC. We'll start in the NFC East. Fourth place. Until a certain trade that happened, you guys might have heard of it. I did not have this team here, but after that, I'm putting Dallas in fourth. That's the kind of thing that can just demoralize a team. And I think that after, DeMarcus Lawrence has already left this offseason to go to Seattle, and now Micah goes to Green Bay, that front is just not so ferocious, and that back end was never the strength of this defense. I think that defensively, they are not going to be able to cut it. I think CeeDee Lamb is obviously a great player. They bring in George Pickens, who is a dramatic but talented number two receiver. I think Dak Prescott is a better quarterback than people want to admit. I understand it's always fun to make fun of the Cowboys, but Dak Prescott, if you give him good weapons, he's a good quarterback. But I don't think that's enough. And frankly, I think that if we've seen anything, it's that karma has a way of things, and I think Jerry Jones is about to get what he deserves for the way that he's been running the Cowboys for the last few years. Third place, I'm going with the New York Giants. I believe that this is a team that has potential in terms of this. We know Malik Neighbors is a good player, really good player. We know that the Giants have an awesome defensive front. Those are two very important things to have. What we don't know about is pretty much all the rest of it. I do like their running back room. I am always intrigued by a team that has a rookie quarterback, not because I assume that the guy is going to be good, but because I acknowledge that if they got lucky and the guy just happens to be really good, this whole process gets accelerated. So every year the teams that like might be playing a rookie quarterback, I just have a little extra eye on them because even if they might not look great, I mean, the Commanders did not look great on paper heading into last year, and then Jaden Daniels hit, and all of a sudden they are a like presumptive contender in this division. So I keep my eye on the Giants for that same reason. But I think they still have a few too many holes to finish anywhere above third. And speaking of the Washington Commanders, I do have them in second. I believe there's a chance that they could win this division. Obviously, this is a division that has a history of turnover at the top, not a whole lot of back to back champions. Um, but the main reason I have them here and not in first is number one, the Eagles are a really good team, but I think Washington they overplayed last year in a lot of ways. Like they punched above their head. They went way beyond what they ever should have, and they probably accelerated their timeline like beyond what's reasonable. I would say if Washington simply maintains their level from last year and proves that they are still a contender and are a team that could contend for multiple years, I think that's probably what's considered a win more than being like now they have to make the Super Bowl or it's disappointing. I think that they started really, really fast and reached a point that they probably weren't as good. Like they weren't as good of a team as an NFC championship like level team usually is. So I think that if they just simply were to maintain their level and they you get to the playoffs and you win a game or two, I think that's probably proof that what's happening in Washington is working. And then next year is the year we really expect the big leap. So I'm going to put them in second for that reason. And then number one, Philadelphia. Obviously, they're coming out the Super Bowl win. As much as I would love to be controversial and say somebody's going to beat them, um, they have a really strong roster, and I would need to see one of those teams have done something a lot more substantial in the offseason to do that. NFC North, super tough, super tough. This one, in a lot of ways, is just about what do I know? Who is the most proven in important spots in this division right now? So, with that being said, number 4 is the Chicago Bears. This team absolutely has the talent that they could potentially win this division. But with a new head coach, all new coaching staff in general, Caleb Williams having an up and down rookie year, a little more down than up, I think would be a fair way to phrase it. They have a lot to prove at some important spots before we can start picking them over three teams that have all shown themselves to be pretty functional in all those ways. But the other team that does have a big hole, or not so much a big hole, but a big question mark in a really important role is Minnesota. I believe talent-wise, Minnesota is a very, very talented team. But the ups and downs of J.J. McCarthy are going to be where this thing gets made. And it really is that simple. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks come in and play well with Kevin O'Connell, so there's reasons to be optimistic, but I need to see that from J.J. McCarthy before I can be putting Minnesota above the other two. Second place, and this one really hurts me to do, and I don't really love doing it because I think that talent-wise, they are the most talented. I'm going to put Detroit in second. Simple reason, I really don't like it, but simple reason being turnover at both the coordinator spots can be a lot. We saw this happen to Philadelphia the year after they made the Super Bowl when they lost it. The next year, things just weren't quite working the same. You know, that like, and especially when you're talking about like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who both clearly did a lot of stuff. Like maybe they just won't be quite as creative on offense. Maybe they won't be quite as flexible on defense. Like maybe they take just a step back in those things because those offensive coordinator, like the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, those guys are going to have to learn too. And I think it's possible that that means the Lions might drop a game here or there that they wouldn't have last year. So I'm going to put the Lions in second, and that means the Packers are in first. The Micah Parsons trade is a big part of this. I don't believe they're as talented as the Lions, and I don't know that it's going to come together as quickly because the Packers have started off a little bit weird, basically every year with Jordan Love. Um, but I think that this will mesh pretty quick. Like somewhere around week 4, probably the Packers will really find their footing, and I think Matt LaFleur is a really good coach. We know that Jordan Love is a good quarterback. How high he can fly, who knows? We'll find out. Um, but he's at least not a big question mark. And they bring in more talent, Micah Parsons being the main one, but ooh, it doesn't necessarily feel great to me because I really don't believe that of these teams they're the most talented, but I do believe that they have the least amount of question marks at the most important spots. So I'm going to put the Packers in first and really like close my eyes while I do it because it doesn't feel good, but there it goes. NFC South. Fourth place. I'm sorry to Houdat Nation. Um, the Saints are in fourth place. The quarterback thing, along with the new head coach and just the overall deterioration of the roster over the years, it's really the only place they can be. And listen, I want to be clear. I think that ultimately this is probably a good thing for the Saints. It's time to let that salary cap heal, and you know, you eventually got to pay off the credit card. So I think it's time for the Saints to do that. Really reset themselves. It probably is going to be one of those rebuilds that takes 2-3 years, but if you're bad in the right year and you get the right quarterback out of it, it's all worth it. So, Saints fans, I know that it's probably not the most exciting, but um, think about this as a new beginning rather than like being stuck in a really bad place. I think that if you play this right, this can turn around pretty quick. So, um, Saints in fourth, but let's let's be optimistic and hope that they're just bad in the right year. Number 3, I'm going with the Carolina Panthers. So I think this is a team that is on the ascent, but much like I've mentioned with some other teams, they just started building from such a low place where progress for them is the kind of thing where it goes from barely being able to win a game to maybe we're just losing close and we steal a couple we would have lost before, and then the year after that you're like, all right, now we turn it into wins. This feels like the kind of year where close losses are probably going to be the thing that indicates progress, unless Bryce Young is going to take a huge leap. But it just feels like Carolina's they sort of they found a level of an identity, like offensively in particular. They think that Bryce Young is going to be good, which after the second half of last year, I think there's reason for optimism. They draft Tetero and McMillan. They're clearly investing in that side of the ball um, to get a read on what they have in Bryce Young, and that's the right way to do it. But it still leaves a lot to be desired on their defense, which, um, I mean, like it or not, usually to make the playoffs, you have to be able to play defense. Second place. This is another one like the NFC North here. I got to just sort of close my eyes and do it. I'm putting Tampa Bay in second place. Um, I've never viewed them as this big juggernaut or this insurmountable team that just is running the NFC South. It feels like every year they sort of just barely get it, or the other teams are just so dysfunctional that there's no team other than them that could get it. And full disclosure, that could absolutely be the case again this year. Um, but I feel like Tampa Bay is like a really high end wild card team. Either that or they're just like they're the 4 seed. Like that feels like what the NFC South teams are. They're either a feisty wild card or they're the 4 seed. And I think that that's sort of right where Tampa Bay lies. And I'm going to take Atlanta to win this division, which, could just be the coldest of cold takes. But Michael Penix looked good in his starts last year. and a full off season as the starter. I mean, I can barely. I'm trying to explain as best I can because I realize that it's a huge assumption. But he showed flashes. I believe in the talent in Atlanta. I don't know that like Drake London's they is a true like high end number one receiver, but I believe he's a number one receiver. Um, Bijan Robinson, my bad. I'm still getting used to that. He is a very talented running back, and they have a good offensive line that blocks for the run very, very well. And I think that at the very least helps to take some stuff off of Michael Penix's back. And then obviously the thing that we all are counting on, this is the Kyle Pitts year. I say this kind of ironically, but also there are some quarterbacks that just enjoy throwing to the tight ends, and if he's one of them, then you never really know. So I think Atlanta's talented enough, and I think that if Michael Penix continues to play like he did last year, with another offseason to like of getting all the reps, all the first team reps, I'm gonna go out there and say the Falcons win this division. And it feels kind of gross, but screw it. NFC West. I think that this is like this is about as hard to predict as the NFC North and AFC North, but for a very different reason. Where it feels like all four of these teams probably cap out like around the same level potentially, but for very different reasons. And so this is another one where what do I which teams just have the least amount of questions in my mind. So in fourth place, I'm gonna put the Seahawks, and once again, I want to be so clear. There's a very clear path for all four of these teams to win this division. So Seattle, Seahawks fans, this really does come down to one really simple thing. New quarterback, new offensive coaching staff, reworked weapons, young offensive line. Um, I think on the offensive side of the ball, there's just a lot of questions and a lot of things that have to come together and work out really, really well. And I just don't know that it will happen fast enough. And the Sam Darnold one's the biggest one, where obviously last year in Minnesota he played great. Like he played great football, and if that version of him shows up, congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. They could very well win this division. Um, but Kevin O'Connell has made a lot of quarterbacks look great. Kevin O'Connell and his offensive like scheme in general has yielded a lot of positive results from like Josh Dobbs, Kirk Cousins obviously is the big one. Um, just in small doses, it seems like no matter who you plug in, it works. So that's a big one. And then you also have Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. It's Minnesota's just one of those rare situations where basically everything is set up to work for you as a quarterback. If you can't function in Minnesota, like what are we doing? I wouldn't say Seattle's in that spot. And I'm just curious about that because if he's not playing at a really high level, the Seahawks to a certain degree they just have a cap on them. Now I think defensively this team's really talented, and another year with Mike McDonald, and I think defensively they're formidable. So that can help any team at any time. Third place, I'm going Arizona. This is a tough one because it just feels like this team is wildly inconsistent. Like there's not a ton of things with this team that I don't know about, quote unquote. Like I don't necessarily have a lot of questions, but I also have no faith at all that this team is going to show up consistently. Like what I do need to know is Marvin Harrison taking a step forward this year? Him and Kyler Murray just couldn't get on the same page last year. A lot of near misses in there that was like a couple hundred yards of receiving still left out there on the field. And I think that that's really, really important. Like, if that offense is going to take a step forward, that's where it's going to come. Because in terms of the run game, Kyler can obviously run from the quarterback spot, and James Conner is a wildly underrated running back who's been doing really good work in Arizona for a long time. If that offense is going to take a step, it's going to be because Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison get on the same page. Because Trey McBride's great at tight end. They already know that. Like, that's where the X factor on offense is. Defensively, Budda Baker's a monster, and the Cardinals are young and still sorting out the guys at the rest of the spots. But they're feisty. So it just feels like the Cardinals, they need a couple things to go their way, but more than anything else, it's like they just need to level. Like they just need to find a level and be able to maintain it, because they feel like the team that every once in a while they punch up and they beat somebody they shouldn't, then goddamn they turn around and lose 3 games in a row. And to me, that little trait in them just scares the hell out of me. All right, so the next two are sort of the two that everybody's talked about as kind of the presumptive favorites. And I've gone back and forth with these. Okay, second place. I'm going to put the 49ers in second place. Although, I fully acknowledge that could be wrong. Because Matthew Stafford's back is scaring the hell out of me. Okay, I'm going to put the 49ers in second place, even though I am firmly rooting for them to win the NFC West. I'm going to put them in second place for simple reason. They decided that this was the offseason that they needed to reset, that they needed to get younger, that they needed to get their cap back towards a place where they can get aggressive again, and they did. Almost their entire defensive front is now new and young and unproven. Obviously, you still have Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, who are elite players, like blue chip players. But instead of Dre Greenlaw, you're going to have D. Winters or Nick Martin next to Fred Warner. And then you're going to have rookie defensive linemen all over the place, most notably Micah Williams. And until we see that happen, I can't say that they are going to effectively disrupt enough people to confidently say that they're going to like win the NFC West. If they do, if those guys are playing to that level, then yeah, absolutely. And I would say that if they are playing to that level, they probably will. If 2 out of those, how many of those guys are going to like, I think it's like 4 or 5 rookies or first time starters that are going to be playing for the 49ers. If like 3 out of those 5 guys play well, I would say they'll probably win the NFC West, but I can't say that quite yet. Offensively, wide receiver is a problem with injuries, but they've made do at that position before, and I think George Kittle they'll just run more of it through him, and he's the best receiver for the 49ers anyways. So I'm going to go with them in second, and then the Rams in first. For a really simple reason. I've seen their young players step up and play well. Matthew Stafford's the best quarterback in the division. Puka Nacua is the best receiver in the division. That's probably it in terms of what they do best in the division, but those are important things. The huge caveat here is just Matthew Stafford's back, and him already having back problems and seeing specialists and saying that he might need shots and things like that throughout the whole season. At his age, that is a really, really bad thing. And it's a really scary thing to be like betting on, where you're like, oh yeah, the Rams for the NFC West. It's like if Matthew Stafford misses 4 games or something like that, that could be the difference. And I think talent-wise, they're probably just the most developed in terms of finding the next era of their team that I will take them to win this division, but I need Matthew Stafford to stay healthy. So those are the division predictions. On to who I think is going to be in the Super Bowl. So, I think that the AFC champion. Ooh. I think the one team I feel really confidently about in the AFC, in terms of their roster, in terms of their quarterback, in terms of just their veteran presence of having been in moments, I'm going to take the Ravens to finally break through and make the Super Bowl. I would love to say it would be the Bills, but I just have more faith in Baltimore's roster. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And then from the NFC, you know what? I'm going to go with a wild card team, or what I predict as a wild card team from the NFC. Because I believe that last year really didn't go the way that they wanted. And I think a good deal of it was health. And I think that if they were to make the playoffs, then it would be a sign that their coaching staff meshed. I'm going to take the Lions. I think it's going to be Baltimore and Detroit, and that Baltimore wins the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson gets a ring. Yeah, yeah, we'll go with that. And then some quick little award season predictions. Why not? Let's do it. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'll give a couple of guys that I think that this could come down to. I think that the two running backs, Genty and Hampton, they'll both get a lot of touches, and we'll see just a good push for both of them. Um, Cam Ward, if he was to play well, he'll win it running away. I'll acknowledge that. In terms of who I think it will be, I'll go with the guy who I think is just going to get the most touches and probably have the most success as a result. I'll say, you know what? I'm going to say that Omarion Hampton's going to win it because I think that the Chargers are just a little better set up for him to thrive right away, and they want to run the ball. Teams have to be more worried about Justin Herbert passing than about Geno Smith passing. Um, I'll say that Marion Hampton is going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, and just sort of hope that Cam Ward doesn't have a Jaden Daniels year, I guess. Um, Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think there's a couple obvious ones here. We're obviously talking Abdul Carter. I think Mason Graham could be in there. Um, Michael Williams could be in there. And I'll say those guys for a few reasons. Number one, defensive linemen, the counting stats are a lot easier to measure. When it comes to linebackers, corners, and safeties, so much of playing well at those positions is that you don't get challenged in certain ways that oftentimes you not having a whole lot of statistical like flashy numbers, a lot of times it means you've actually done your job really well. So usually it's a defensive lineman. And I'm going to go with either Abdul Carter, Mason Graham, or Michael Williams for this reason. They all have really good players with them that will draw attention away, and they're going to get a lot more one-on-one opportunities to flash. Um, with Dexter Lawrence in New York, Myles Garrett in Cleveland, and Nick Bosa in San Francisco. I'm going to say, man, it feels so lame, but I'm gonna go with Abdul Carter. Yeah, I know it feels very chalk, but I'll go Abdul Carter. I think that with all everything going on with the Giants, um, in terms of that defensive line, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. The only thing that scares me is if that Giants offense just isn't ahead a lot, he might not get the same pure pass rush opportunity. But I'll go with him. And then I'm not going to do offensive defensive player of the year. There's just too many ways. The pool's too big. But MVP, we can essentially narrow down in a couple of ways to who's going to be the best quarterback next year. I believe that if this team is going to make a leap, then it's tough. I feel like the weird thing is, I think voters get voter fatigue. That's why Patrick Mahomes doesn't win it a lot. Uh, that's why I don't think Josh Allen will win it next year. You know what? I think I've got them making the playoffs. So I'm going to say that if he can drag this goddamn team to the playoffs, that he deserves to be MVP. People were making the argument last year, even though the team missed the playoffs. I'll say Joe Burrow gets MVP this year. If he can get that Cincinnati team to the playoffs, then he's the MVP. Yeah, I really hate relying on the Bengals for anything, but I think Joe Burrow's an awesome player. All right, so that will wrap it up for my 2025 season predictions. Um, I hope everybody is like really excited for the year. I hope everybody has a great year. I hope that um, in the end, no matter what, we just remember that this is about fun and let's try not to take it too personal. That's what I tell myself as I pick the 49ers to lose the division. It's not, this doesn't really affect me, but it will. So, yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. Hit like, hit subscribe, and let's have a great season. Peace.